Hey guys! Today we'll be covering a 2022 drama film called Lighting Up the Stars. At the start of the movie, 5-year-old orphan Wu Xiaowen wakes up one morning and finds her maternal grandmother dead in the bed next to her. Xiaowen doesn't know if her biological parents are dead or alive. All she knows is that her parents are not in her life, and her grandmother is the only parental figure she has had so far. In the next scene, the back alley funeral service Upsky, owned by old Mo and operated by his no-good son, Mo San-mei, is summoned, and the latter tries to revive the grandmother, but without any luck. After the grandmother is confirmed dead, San-mei and his funeral business are hired for her cremation and funeral. San-mei recently got out of prison for assaulting the lover of his ex-girlfriend, who had cheated on him. Meanwhile, Xiaowen's maternal uncle and his cruel wife have taken temporary custody of her. While San-mei is preparing the grandmother for the funeral, Xiaowen pokes him with a stick, demanding he not touch her. The poor girl still hasn't come to terms with the fact that her grandmother is gone forever. Amid all the commotion, San-mei is accused by Xiaowen's aunt of stealing the dead woman's wedding ring. Furious at the false accusations, San-mei takes off his clothes and stands naked in front of Xiaowen's aunt, claiming that he hasn't stolen any ring. After proving his point, he has the boys put the dead grandma in a coffin and drive away to the funeral home in a van. Meanwhile, Xiaowen wonders where they are taking her grandmother and decides to follow the van. In the next scene, we see San-mei's widowed father, old Mo, who thinks his son is a disappointment to the family. San-mei also has a younger sister, Mo De-gi. However, old Mo is about to retire, and he wants San-mei to take over the business. From their conversation, we learn that San-mei also had an older brother who died long ago. Before handing over the papers for the property, old Mo advises his son to keep a record of every dead person and pay respects to his ancestors. For some reason, San-mei doesn't want to say prayers for his dead brother. Just then, he gets a long-awaited reply from his ex-girlfriend, Hai Fei. San-mei wastes no time and gets in his van. He makes an unannounced and uninvited visit to his ex-girlfriend's house. San-mei is still very angry and bitter over the breakup with Fei, so he starts getting aggressive with her. The final straw is when he learns that Fei is still in a relationship with her lover, Liao Liu. Soon, the two men get into a physical altercation, with Liao Liu getting the upper hand. However, their fight abruptly ends when Fei announces that she is pregnant with Liao Liu's child. Shocked, San-mei asks why she did what she did. Fei replies that she wanted a stable home and a good father, unlike him, who is reckless and selfish. Deeply wounded by her words, a devastated San-mei leaves. Fei and Liao Liu decide not to press charges against San-mei, as they just want him out of their lives. When he arrives back home, he sees Xiaowen waiting for him. The little girl has not been given a proper explanation for her grandmother's death. She thinks San-mei is holding her grandmother captive in a box. The brave little Xiaowen confronts San-mei and demands that he give her grandmother back to her. San-mei has no patience or experience in taking care of children, so he gets annoyed and frustrated with Xiaowen, whom he calls a little devil. Thankfully, Xiaowen's uncle arrives at the funeral home and takes her away. Later that evening, San-mei and his two friends, Jianren and Bashui, who help out around the funeral business, talk about how they are on the verge of going broke. Just then, a furious Xiaowen arrives at their door and again demands to know her grandmother's whereabouts. Her uncle arrives shortly after and reveals that he has to make an urgent trip to Beijing. He then asks San-mei if he would look after the girl for 3 days in exchange for some money. Xiaowen is a grumpy handful, but San-mei eventually agrees when his friends insist that he take the offer. The first night at the funeral home, things get really awkward. In a cramped bedroom, there's a bunk bed where San-mei is sleeping at the bottom, while Xiaowen is sleeping on the top. He's woken up by something dripping on his face. It's Xiaowen urinating in the bed. San-mei is instantly irritated because he thinks that the kid isn't potty trained. It turns out that Xiaowen is potty trained, but she explains that she was too afraid to use the bathroom. San-mei immediately gets the bed sheets in the washing machine and lets her sleep on his bed. He then makes himself comfortable on a sofa nearby. The following morning, he prepares to get the paperwork done for the property transfer, as his father has reluctantly agreed to hand over the family funeral business to him. However, he soon realizes that the official documents got washed, along with the bedsheets the other night. Now the authority cannot transfer the property to his name. Next, he is called to a hospital where Jianren is having a hard time convincing the client that their company can properly take care of the client's recently passed daughter. San-mei gets an idea. to pretend that Xiaowen is his daughter so that he can present an empathy to connect with the client. The plan works, and the client agrees to have his daughter's funeral performed by San Mei and his buddies. Later, Xiaowen creates a scene at the crematorium thinking that they still have her grandma. As a result, San Mei tells her the truth. He shows the girl the chimney of the crematorium and then angrily tells the girl that her grandmother was burned up, her body turned to ash and smoke, drifted up into the sky, and disappeared. Xiaowen is understandably devastated by the news, and especially the cruel way of his words. She immediately breaks down and begins to deeply grieve her loss. Once back at home, Jianren and Bai Shui console the girl and explain that her grandmother floated away to the sky, becoming a star. Later that night, San Mei finds a little girl sitting outside and listening to her grandmother's voice recordings on her smartwatch. Just when he begins to empathize with the girl, she gets into more trouble. The following morning, San Mei wakes to find that Xiaowen has ruined the special urn ordered for the client's daughter's funeral. She has drawn several pictures all over it. Furious, he starts to scold her. Thankfully, the client's daughter used to be fond of drawing, and he insists on thanking San Mei just for being thoughtful. He also gives some money to Xiaowen for her hard work. Because of this, Jianwen and Bishui begin to believe that the girl is a lucky star for them. That night, the four of them start to bond as they enjoy a meal together. Just then, the young girl's uncle calls San Mei and informs them that they are back from Beijing. Soon they take her to her uncle's place, but after seeing the aunt's cruel behavior towards Xiaowen, San Mei demands that the little girl be treated properly. Xiaowen doesn't want to live with her quarreling aunt and uncle either, so she is given the choice to live with her aunt and uncle or to live with San Mei. Surprisingly, she chooses to stay with San Mei, whom she has already begun to think of as a father figure. Next, San Mei drives her back home, only to find his furious father and sister waiting at the door. Old Mo has learned of the child and that she has created havoc among the clients earlier in the crematorium. After arguing with his father, they come to an agreement that San Mei will buy the family business for 300,000 within 30 days. Meanwhile, Jianren is worried about his buddy since they don't have any idea how to get such hefty money in such short time. Thankfully, Xiaowen saves the day by introducing San Mei to Grandpa Lu, an old friend of her grandmother who wants to hold his own lavish funeral while he's still alive, so he can experience it for himself. More importantly, he's willing to pay San Mei 300,000 to personally arrange it. San Mei and his friends hold the funeral as requested, but run into a problem when Grandpa Lu's son intervenes in the ceremony. The son has his friend beat up San Mei and his friends, and they eventually end up in police custody. They are eventually released, but they learn that during the fight, Xiaowen's smartwatch was damaged. San Mei promises that he will fix it, and until then, he draws a makeshift watch on her wrist. One day, Xiaowen's uncle calls San Mei and asks if he will adopt a little girl. As he is already starting to grow a soft spot for her, San Mei quickly accepts. But when they go to the authorities to do the official adoption paperwork, they learn that San Mei cannot adopt her because he is unmarried. But it just so happens that Jianren and Bashui have been dating behind San Mei's back, and the couple decides to help their friend. They quickly make a marriage certificate and legally adopt Xiaowen as their daughter. In the following days, the bond between them continues to strengthen, and Xiaowen is even enrolled in kindergarten, although she has one of her tantrums on the first day. One day, San Mei's ex-girlfriend visits the store and sadly informs him that her lover and fiancé, Lalio, has passed away. So she begs San Mei to stitch up the corpse and do the funeral, as other companies charge extremely high prices for a corpse like that. San Mei initially hesitates as he has gotten into several altercations with Lalio in the past, but when Fei apologizes for everything, he agrees. However, since he cannot do the deed alone, San Mei asks for his father's help. The old man only agrees when Xiaowen charms him with her cuteness. In the next scene, old Mo, San Mei, and Jianren go to the mortuary, but Jianren immediately throws up after seeing the body in such horrific condition. San Mei cannot help himself either, but with the help of his father, he manages to stitch the body up and put him back together. However, after the work is done, old Mo suddenly falls ill and is admitted to the hospital. As he is tending to his father, San Mei gets a call from Xiaowen's school and has to rush there immediately. Old Mo realizes that his son has finally found something that he cares about. At the school, it turns out that Xiaowen has been making really disturbing drawings and not getting along with other students. The teachers question San Mei's parenting and want him to attend a monthly parent-teacher meeting. Once back at the hospital, Sanmai has a heartfelt and long overdue conversation with his father. He learns that his older brother died tragically while trying to retrieve a body from a river. Old Mo still regrets sending his oldest son, who was still a child at the time, to look for the body, thinking it would make some money for their funeral business. From that day on, Sanmai becomes determined to run the family business properly. He continues to spend time with his loving little girl. Since Xiaowen's smartwatch was destroyed earlier, he tries his best to retrieve the data from it, especially her grandmother's voice recording. It turns out that the poor girl has been crying about it for days as she misses her grandmother dearly. After an exhaustive search, Sanmai finally finds a place to recover the recordings. He then puts them on a pen drive, and on Xiaowen's birthday, he gives her the most beloved surprise. The young girl immediately becomes emotional after hearing her grandma's voice and tightly hugs Sanmai as a way of thanking him. One day, Xiaowen's uncle and an unfamiliar lady approach Sanmai in the street. The uncle informs them that the lady is Xiaowen's supposedly dead mother, and now she wants custody of her daughter. Sanmai doesn't take them seriously and abruptly leaves for home. Later that night, the lady pleads with Sanmai at his door and demands to have her daughter back. She reasons that she was only a teenager when she had Xiaowen. She then got into trouble and ended up in prison, but she has never stopped thinking about her little girl. Hearing this, Sanmai heartbreakingly agrees to give away his little girl. One night when she is asleep, he quietly gets her out of bed and brings her outside, where her mother is waiting with a cab. But Xiaowen suddenly wakes up and demands to be with her dad, meaning Sanmai. However, it is already too late, and the cab takes her away, despite her continuous pleas and sobbing. Sanmai also gets emotional, as the little girl means the world to him. To make things worse, he learns that his father has passed away. Before dying, old Mo had left his children a letter, in which he stated that he wanted a simple funeral and his ashes spread up in the sky. But Sanmai's sister wants the ashes to be buried in an urn alongside their mother's. Sanmai knows his father wanted otherwise, so after the funeral, he quickly grabs the urn containing their father's ashes and runs away, while his angry sister chases him in a car. With the help of his friends, Sanmai sets up a firework display and uses it to spread his ashes. As they look up in the sky and watch the sparkling fireworks, Sanmai gets a call from Xiaowen's mother and learns that the little girl is missing. Wasting no time, he immediately gets in his van and relentlessly searches every nook and cranny of the city. However, when he doesn't find her after hours of intense search, Sanmai starts to break down. Just then, he hears little Xiaowen screaming his name. The father and daughter finally reunite and embrace each other in tight arms. Turns out, Xiaowen had run away from her mother's place to look for Sanmai. The final scene of the movie shows Sanmai, Xiaowen, and her mother living together while the lovebirds, Jianren and Baishui, finally have an official wedding at the funeral home.